portfolio, and I'm going to demonstrate what preparing with paper really means. Let's say that I am in a meeting with a client or with my boss, and their cell phone rings. Instead of simply sitting there, like many of us do, and say, no, that's okay, just go ahead, get it, it's okay, and not really doing anything while that person is on their smartphone or their cell phone, what I'm going to do is say, that's fine. And as you pick up your cell phone, I'm going to pick up my leather binder, and I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to take out a pen. I know these seem rare these days, but I'm going to take out my pen, and I'm going to start to be busy. I might jot some notes down. I might review some papers that I have here in this binder. But what I'm not going to do is sit there and behave as if, oh no, I don't have anything to do. I'm so not busy, I'm just going to sit here and stare at the ceiling while you talk on your cell phone. No. The next time a cell phone rings or somebody has to take a call or do whatever, instead of simply waiting for that person, and by the way, this is a fantastic strategy to use during a job interview. Many times the people that are interviewing us purposely have a call set up or something set up during the interview to see how we behave while they're busy. So be prepared. Bring a folder if you don't have a leather binder, or always bring something with you that is not technology so that while they are on their gadget, you can open up your papers, do a little bit of work, take some notes. You know, you might just be writing something down such as, I'm writing things down while this person is talking on their cell phone. But then as soon as they're done, what you're going to do is say, oh, great, where were we? And get right on with the meeting. That will set you apart and make you look like someone who always has something to do. And it will make you look that way because you were prepared with paper. Prepare with paper.
Look prepared.
Prepare with paper.
Don't be scared.
Prepare with paper.
Till they're off the phone.
And while we're on the subject of cell phones and technology and things like that, remember that proper cell phone etiquette is when you're sitting down to have a conversation with somebody, anybody, especially in a professional environment, especially something such as a meeting with a prospect, a meeting with a client, a meeting with your boss, or whether maybe you're on a romantic date. Proper etiquette is, I'm going to turn off my cell phone. Off, not on vibrate. Turn it off. And if for some reason you cannot turn it off, because some of us have put ourselves in the position of, oh, I have to answer these calls, people are expecting me to answer. If that is the case with you, remember at the beginning of the conversation, at the beginning of the meeting, when you sit down, alert the other person to the fact that you may have to take a phone call by saying something such as, I have to apologize in advance. If my cell phone rings, I'm expecting an important call that I have to take. I apologize because I normally wouldn't do that to you. You know, let somebody know, I realize that taking a call while I'm with you is rude, because while I have a cell phone on and I'm with somebody else and you answer it if it rings, the message that sends is, I'm only here with you until something better comes along, and that cell phone ringing is the something better. Now, we might not intentionally be sending that message, but that is the message that we are sending if we are in the category of people who are always a slave to our cell phones and answer it every time it rings, no matter what situation we're in. Remember, answering a cell phone call and saying, hey, can I call you back in a little bit? I'm on a date, or I'm in a meeting, or I'm with a customer, or I'm with a client, is not proper protocol. Proper protocol is to turn your cell phone off in advance and then turn it back on when you're done with your meeting. Or if you absolutely cannot do that, let the person know again, I have to apologize in advance because I'm expecting a very important call that I must take. So if that cell phone rings, I apologize that I may have to take it. Simple. And what I'd like you to do is this week, carry around, a binder, your portfolio, a folder, carry it around everywhere you go. And look for opportunities. Look for other people answering their phones while you're talking with them and take it out and start doing something. Maybe you'll just take it out and take notes as to how often this will happen to you, because it is amazing these days how often people will take phone calls while we're speaking with them, while we're having a conversation with them. But I'd like you to practice being that person who is prepared for other people's communication shortcomings. And not only will that make you more aware and sensitive so that you won't make those same communication mistakes in the future, it will also help project the image that you are somebody who always has something to do, who is never bored, and who is always prepared. The next technique that you're going to learn about you will find very useful, especially if you have a spouse or children in your life. It is called your lying eyes.
Recognize their lying eyes.
In this strategy, what you're going to do is learn how to pick up on other people's body language signals, specifically their eyes, so that you can more effectively determine if someone is telling you the truth or not. You know, if you've ever been picked up by a police officer, not that anyone who's watching this has, the first question that an officer tends to ask us is, do you know why I pulled you over? Or do you know how fast you were going? And remember the next time, by the way, if you ever get pulled over by an officer, hopefully you don't, but the next time if you do, that question that officers ask us is a strategy that they're using to see if we are an honest person or not. Because when we stop and think about a question, whether it's how fast was I going, or where was I going in such a hurry, or if you say to your spouse something along the lines of, honey, I just saw a charge on our credit card statement that I didn't recognize. Do you know what this is? And you show it to them. Or you say to your children, sweetheart, what happened to you last night? Why did you come in a few hours past curfew? Remember, there is the left-hand side of the brain where logic lives, where language lives, where numbers live, and then there's the right-hand side of the brain where creativity lives, where conceptual thinking happens. And when we stop and think about something, we'll either stop and look over to the left or we'll stop and look over to the right. Human beings don't just stop and look straight up, cross their eyes as they're thinking about something. We'll look over to the left or we'll look over to the right. And what we're doing when we do that is we're actually searching this part of our brain where the information we're looking for lives. So for example, if you have to stop and recite your phone number backwards, like do that right now. Stop and recite your phone number backwards. Go. Chances are when you started to do that, you did this. Because when you look over to the left, that's where numbers live. You're searching the left-hand side of the brain where those numbers live. And if you have to recite your phone number backwards, that's the part of the brain that you're using. If, however, we stop and look up to the right, that's not where numbers live. That's not where memories live. That's where creativity lives. So when an officer, for example, asks you, do you know how fast you were going, or where were you going in such a hurry? One of the things they're looking for is, what side of the brain is that person searching? Just like when you ask your spouse, I didn't recognize this charge on our credit card statement. Can you tell me what it is? Watch their eyes, because when somebody is asked a specific question that requires memory, now of course some questions require creativity, but when a question requires memory and somebody does this, what side of the brain are they searching? The left-hand side. Logic, memory, facts, figures. But if you were to ask your child, you came in a few hours late last night, what happened? Or you were to ask your spouse, do you know anything about this charge on our credit card statement? And they do this. What side of the brain is that? Creativity. And what's funny is you'll see a lot of people do this. When you ask them a question about where were you last Thursday night, or when you ask them a question about money or something such as that, watch how you'll find a lot of people do this. Well, because first they stopped and thought, what's the answer to that? And then they thought, oh no, I'm not telling them that, and went over to the other side of the brain so they could think of a good one for you. So remember, don't be an uneducated communicator that doesn't pick up on simple signals that people are sending, because you don't need to be an NLP master to be able to look at somebody's eyes and see what side of the brain they're currently searching. That's what human beings do when they're looking for answers. They'll look up to the left or they'll look up to the right. And now that you're in the know, you will be able to more effectively judge if somebody is searching the part of their brain where memory and the answer to your question lives, or if they're searching the part of the brain for a really good story to tell you. And that is how you can start to read other people's lying eyes.
Recognize their lying eyes.
So what I'd like you to do is this week, look for opportunities to test out this strategy. Ask people specific questions. Maybe right now, when you're done listening to this, go around and ask people, hey, recite your phone number backwards, including the area code, and watch what they do. Watch what they do as they answer the question. And also ask people things like, hey, what were you doing last Friday night? And watch how many people will answer you as they do this. Because they'll remember and think, I'm not telling them that, and change their answer. So remember to test out the theory of your lying eyes, and you'll be one step closer to being a truth machine. Now let's get on to our danger phrases and power phrases.
Stop using danger phrases. We're gonna give you the power.
This week, for your danger phrases and power phrases for home, I'm going to talk about generalizations and hostile questions. So instead of giving you very, very specific danger phrases, I'm going to talk about categories of danger phrases. Let's start off with generalizations. Generalizations are phrases that begin with you always, or you never, or even sometimes, occasionally. Watch those words, always, never, sometimes, occasionally, both at work and at home. But since we're talking about at home, when we say to our spouse or our children things such as, you never do what you say you're going to do, or you always do XYZ, you never blah, blah, blah. Remember that people speak at approximately 150 words per minute. I speak a little bit more quickly. I tend to speak at about 250 words per minute if I'm talking to a friend. The world's fastest talker speaks at approximately 600 words per minute. And then we have our self-talk. And our self-talk runs at the rate of about 800 words per minute. And that's something we all want to keep in mind as savvy communicators. When we generalize and say things such as always or never, the person that we're speaking to tends to talk more to themselves in their heads, right? So if I were to say to my spouse something like, you never help me with the housework like you say you're going to, what my spouse is going to start thinking is, oh, here we go again. One of those little speeches about how I never help with the housework. I just helped with the housework last Friday, didn't get to speak instead. I'm just getting this big speech about how I never help out with the housework. And their self-talk is just going to go on and go on and go on. Just like at work, if we say to somebody, Charlie, I noticed that sometimes you come in late. We're trying to actually be nice, but because we generalized and said sometimes, the person to whom we're speaking is going to start thinking, one of these big speeches again about how I'm coming in late. I wasn't always late. I was just on time last Thursday. Nobody noticed that. I just got this big speech about I'm coming in late today. So instead of generalizing, which speeds up self-talk, be specific and use phrases such as this morning, this afternoon, yesterday, today at 4:30. When we are specific, all people tend to think in their brains, if we're bringing something to their attention, such as you didn't do this correctly, you didn't do what you said you were going to do. When we bring things up but we are specific rather than general, what happens is the self-talk says to the person, yeah, I'm busted. And it slows down, and the person is more likely to listen to the message that we're sending. And one of the things that we want to do is to try and get the message through to the person with whom we're communicating, slow down the self-talk. Something that speeds it up is generalizing. Always, never, sometimes, occasionally. Something that slows it down are very specific phrases such as today, yesterday, this morning, this afternoon, today at 4. That will decrease self-talk, slow it down, and increase the odds of your message getting through. And the last thing I'd like to talk about specifically for home are what we call hostile questions. Remember that hostile questions are questions that begin with things such as, what were you thinking when? Or, why would you? Hostile questions very frequently begin with, what were you thinking? What were you? Why would you? And those phrases tend to then end with sentences that are not really questions at all. They're statements wrapped up, thinly disguised as questions. When we say to somebody, what were you thinking? Why would you do that? Our intention really isn't to find out, boy, what was bothering you so much that you'd behave that way? That tends not to be our intention. Our intention tends to be to fight, if we're going to be honest, and that is not generally going to resolve whatever communication issue we're trying to address to begin with. So instead, the next time when you're about to say to somebody, why would you yada yada yada, or what were you yada yada yada, instead start a sentence with I realize yada yada yada, but yada yada yada. And remember, do not be afraid of the word but. I know that a lot of communication conferences that I go to, a lot of courses, a lot of books that I read will say, oh, you can't say the word but because it negates everything that came before it. The word but is a great word to use, and it's appropriate, especially in situations such as this. When I'm going to say to you, I realize, yada yada yada, but. That's, again, what we use in place of a hostile question. For example, I realize you didn't mean to embarrass me in front of our friends at the party, but you did. Or, I realize you're not aware that you're coming in late, but you are. So instead of using a hostile question, why are you, what were you, remember, it's very simple to express ourselves, and that is a great way to turn what could have been a hostile question into a savvy, assertive statement. Should they? Now, the other two danger phrases I would like to give you are for work. And danger phrase number 1 is really or very. Sometimes at work, we tend to throw in words like really or very, thinking that it's going to somehow buttress our message and make it even stronger. But that is not the case. It is, in fact, the opposite. You'll notice that if I were to say something to you like, I really believe in that idea, that is not as powerful as, I believe in that idea, right? Or if I were to say, that's a very dangerous thing you're doing, that's not as powerful as, that's a dangerous thing you're doing, right? It tends to be, by the way, speech patterns of women. Women tend to use the words very and really much more than men do. So if you are a woman and you notice that that's part of your verbal repertoire, be especially conscious of taking it out when you want to appear more powerful and strong in the workplace. Men, same thing. A lot of men use the words very and really inappropriately. It just happens to be that more women do than men. However, for both men and women, the words really and very take away from the strength of your message in most circumstances. Now, of course, if I'm at home and I say to my spouse, I really love you, that's different. But at work, when I want to say something such as, I really believe that we are the firm for your company, that is not as good as, we're the firm for your company, right? So watch those words such as very and really, and there is no power phrase that you would want to use to replace them. These are what we would call purge phrases. Eliminate those phrases. And the next phrase for work is, my name is. Remember that when we meet somebody, our subconscious makes connections. We tend to, within a matter of seconds, listen to what somebody is saying to us and connect them with other people who speak the same way that they do. Our brain forms immediate connections, and we start to, on a subconscious level, sometimes on a more conscious level, but especially on a subconscious level, we'll think, okay, who else talks like that? And we will associate people with other people who speak the way that they do. And people who do not truly feel a sense of personal power or professional success tend to introduce themselves using the starter phrase, my name is. When people who believe they have achieved something introduce themselves by saying, I am, or on the phone, this is. So remember, it's very different saying, hi, my name's Dan O'Connor, than saying, hi, I'm Dan O'Connor. The next time you're about to introduce yourself, if you have not already picked up on this verbal pattern, sometimes you might not feel as confident as you'd like to be. That's the time when we want to fake it till we make it. And if you don't feel like you're powerful and successful yet, use the verbal patterns of those who do, and you will appear more powerful and successful, and eventually become more powerful and successful. One of the ways we can do it is by simply changing little verbal patterns. Instead of, my name is, I'm, or this is. Simple. And those are your danger phrases and power phrases for work and home.
Stop using danger phrases. We're gonna give you the power.
And now I'd like to talk about freestyle scripting for a little bit.
Freestyle scripting helps you start and stop with a bang.
Freestyle scripting is a technique that everybody can use to help get the thoughts from our brain out of our mouth more quickly, more effectively, and more easily. You know how when we have to have one of those little talks with somebody, maybe we're talking to our kids, maybe we're talking to our spouse, maybe we're talking to our boss, maybe we're talking to a coworker, maybe we're talking to an employee. For most of us, it's difficult to have a difficult conversation. That's why they call them difficult. Conversations such as, I need to correct your behavior, I need to tell you that you're doing something wrong. One of those conversations. Many of us struggle beginning them, and many of us struggle ending them, when those are the most important parts of those conversations. People tend not to remember so much the words that we say to them. They tend to remember how we make them feel. However, in difficult conversations, people do tend, if they only remember one or two things, they tend to remember the first line out of your mouth and the last line out of your mouth. Your opening line and your closing line are the most important parts of difficult conversations, and many people wing it. Wing something else. Make sure to script out your lead-in line and closing line for difficult conversations. We all know very savvy, powerful communicators that make having difficult conversations look effortless. And if you pay attention and if you ask them and if they're honest, many of them will tell you that they do not wing the first line or the last line. Just like when we are learning about public speaking, one of the first things you'll learn about public speaking is you want to have your opening line and your closing line prepared. You want to have those scripted out word for word, because if all else fails in the middle, at least you will start with a bang and end with a bang. So what I'd like to do today is talk about your lead-in line and your closing line for difficult conversations. Let's start off with your lead-in line. A lead-in line has 3 critical components. Component number 1, you want to use I language. And what that means is I'm going to be talking about me. Now this is for a difficult conversation where I'm going to be sending a message to somebody, hey, here's what you did wrong, here's why it's wrong, here's what you need to do differently in the future, and here's what you'll get out of it. So of course there are a myriad of different difficult conversations to have. This is just your basic run-of-the-mill everyday, I'm maybe a new supervisor, or maybe I'm a new parent, maybe I'm a new spouse, and I need to bring up an issue that's bothering me, or that, some type of behavior that needs to be corrected. These types of issues. When you start the conversation, remember that the worst way to start these conversations is, what's the worst lead-in line in the whole world? We need to talk. Don't ever say that. That closes the lines of communication. So instead, a lead-in line, remember, has 3 steps. Step number 1 is I language. That means this is about me. I'm not talking about you yet. So I could say something such as, I'm frustrated, or I need your help, or I'm concerned, or I'm confused. That's the type of I language that I'm talking about. Key number 2, make them short. And key number 3, use the other person's name. So for example, to put the 3 principles of a lead-in line together, I might say something like, George, I need your help. Or, Mary, I am frustrated. Or, Charlie, I'm confused. That's a lead-in line. I'm using the 3 things that you should always incorporate in every lead-in line. Use I language, use the person's name, and make them short. And then remember, you put a period. Many people, when they're practicing using lead-in lines for difficult conversations, they'll say things such as, John, I'm frustrated because you blah, blah, blah. Don't do that. Remember, there is a period after your lead-in line. And then we would use what's called a pregnant pause, a pause that's just a little bit longer than a regular pause. So I might say, Charlie, I'm frustrated. Yesterday, and then go on with the message. But remember, use I language, use the person's name, make them short. Those are the 3 keys. And then put a period and a pregnant pause. All right? Once you've done that, you can start delivering your message. And you can feel more confident because you started with a bang. Many of us, we really struggle with being confident in our communication. This is a great way to instantly boost your communication confidence because you'll be starting off powerfully. You won't be stumbling over your words. Many times people start these conversations and they'll start them off like this. Hey, Dan, can I talk to you for a second? And that sets up the conversation to be a passive one. Sometimes people start off these conversations like this. You, me, we need to talk. That sets off the conversation to be more of an aggressive one. There is somewhere between passive and aggressive. And a properly constructed lead-in line helps you find that middle ground and be assertive, and it lets the person to whom you're speaking know, oh, okay, I gotta listen to this because this is a real message they're sending that's important, without attacking them first, without making them feel intimidated, or without making them think, oh, what is it now? With one of these, can I talk to you for a second type of lead-in lines. And now that we've done that, let's talk about our closing lines. I'm gonna start off with the worst closing line of all time. We've all heard somebody give a great speech. Maybe you're at a wedding and somebody will say something like, well, as we all know, we're here to celebrate the union between Mary and John. We've all been so blessed to watch their love grow from a puppy love to a more mature love, and here they are starting a family together. So let's all raise a glass and wish them well in their life journey together. That's it. That's it? That's the best people can do after delivering a message? Is they'll say, that's it at the end of it? Remember, you should never have to tell people, I'm done speaking, that's all the message, there shall be no more words coming out of my mouth. That's it. That's it is something that a pig would say at the end of a cartoon. So instead of using a closing line like, that's it, or, well, I think we're done here, or something where it's really saying to the person, I have not honored you in this conversation enough to think of how to end it. Instead of doing that, a great way to close, especially a difficult conversation, is to use a closed-ended question. Remember that a closed-ended question is a question that is going to require the person to whom you're asking the question to give you a yes or a no or a one-word answer. Generally yes or no, sometimes just one word. So a great closing line for a difficult conversation, my favorite closing line of all time, is this phrase. Can I count on you? Or can I count on you for that? Remember, while you're asking the closing line, if you want them to say yes, nod your head. Can I count on you? That increases the odds of them saying yes. But it's interesting how you can say to the average person, blah, 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 blah. Can I count on you? And watch how they'll say, yes. What did I just agree to? Because you used the phrase, can I count on you? And human beings, we have it built in us to want to respond to that with a yes. You know, most people don't want to hear the phrase, can I count on you, and say, who, me? No. No, I'm so unreliable. People don't say that. So you could use a closing line such as, will that work for you? Or, are we on the same page? Whatever it is, people generally, after a difficult conversation, they want it to stop. You know, when they sense that you're done delivering that difficult message, they want the message to stop. Most people are not comfortable with difficult conversations. And so when you give them an out, when you give them an opportunity to end this conversation, because people know that when you signal it by saying things like, are we on the same page? Or will that work for you? Or can I count on you for that? People recognize that, and you will find that you will get an overwhelming number of people saying yes, and then you're done. You can give a simple, great, I'm glad we had this talk, and walk the other way, or you can just give a simple thanks, and you are finished. Now, later on in these lessons, we're going to get to how to construct the meat of that conversation. But you have to first have your lead-in line and your closing line. Once you've mastered that, then we can talk about different freestyle scripting techniques to help us get the thoughts from our brain out of our mouth between your lead-in line and your closing line. But I'd like you to start out this week, when you have to have a difficult conversation, practicing using some lead-in lines and closing lines. You will find that it will make it much easier for you to deliver these messages, and you'll walk away feeling much more satisfied and confident that, wow, that message was more powerful because you simply used a good lead-in line and closing line.
Freestyle scripting helps you start and stop with a bang.
And now it's time for our communication principle of the week.
Communication principle of the week.
This week, what you're going to be doing along with our regular lesson is completing step 2 of creating a personal compass. And in step 2, what you're going to be doing is writing down why you're here. You're going to be writing down, I'm here to statements. And the reason we're going to do this is because so often when I'm communicating, I'm forgetting where I'm really coming from. You know, one of the common mistakes a lot of us make, myself included as communicators, is if I come into work and my job today is a customer service agent, I make the mistake of thinking, why am I here? I'm here to perform customer service tasks. I'm here to answer the phone for my employer. If I'm a real estate agent, I'm here to sell houses. If I'm working at a cell phone store, I'm here to sell cell phones. That's not it. For example, I am a teacher, and I started off teaching kids. And if I woke up in the morning and thought, what am I here to do today? I'm here to teach a class of 5th and 6th graders. I would rather jump off the roof of the school than think that that is my purpose for the day. I was a stockbroker in Chicago, and I worked at the Equitable building right on Michigan Avenue. And I remember thinking, as I worked there, that I was there to buy and sell securities. And I did want to jump off the top of the Equitable Tower. Because at that time I was very young and confused and thought that, you know, whatever my job was, well, that's what I'm here to do. But that's not it. When we're writing our what am I here to do, I am here to statements, what we're talking about is what are we here to do on the planet. Many of us have not really taken the time to decide, what am I here to do? For example, I'm here to learn, I'm here to teach, I'm here to serve, I'm here to love. And when we can think of those statements, what those are statements that validate what we're here to do everywhere. Because when I talk about what I'm here to do statements, I am here to statements. When I talk about that, I'm talking about what I'm here to do on the planet. Not what I'm here to do at work. What I'm here to do, really to do at work is the same thing that I'm here to do at home, at church, at the grocery store, at the gas station. It's all the same. What I'm here to do anywhere is really what I'm here to do everywhere. But sometimes I forget that. Sometimes I forget that even when I'm dealing with a difficult person, I'm here to learn and to teach and to love and to serve. I'm here to do all of that. And if I remember that, and I can have some tool to help trigger that memory, even in difficult situations, I'm more likely to be the person that I want to be. Because remember, it's always so much more important not to figure out what to say or what to do. It's always much more important to figure out who to be. And then what to say and what to do, that all falls into place more naturally. So while we're creating our I'm here to statements, I'd like you to think about this week. Why are you here? Because the principle of the week is this. If you don't determine why you're here, somebody else will determine it for you. And that's the unfortunate truth for many of us. Before I really determined why I was here, other people determined it for me. And that's so true in so many different areas, that the phrase where if you don't, yada yada, someone will do it for you. If I don't manage my time effectively, I will eventually find myself in a position where somebody's managing my time for me. If I don't manage my money effectively, somebody else will eventually manage it for me. If you don't decide who you are, what's going to happen is other people will decide that for you. If you don't decide why you're here, other people will decide that for you. And so what I want to do is say, enough of that. What I'm going to do is decide why I'm here. That's what I'm going to do. I am not just here to create videos and put them on a website. I'm not here to be a communications teacher. I'm not here to be an author. I'm not here to give seminars and workshops and lectures on communication and customer service and dealing with difficult people. I'm here for much more than that. I am here on my Father's business. And if I can keep that in mind during more communication situations, I will find more success in every communication situation, because we tend to lose our minds in difficult communication situations. And if I'm dealing especially with a difficult person, and they say something difficult or nasty to me, my brain gets drugged. I can't help it. Thousands of years have gone into programming my brain to respond a certain way when I'm attacked verbally. And I'm going to start thinking on a subconscious level, why am I here? I'm here to crush you. I am here to show you that you can't talk to me that way. I am here to show you that I can be meaner than you. I am here to, we start thinking about all these crazy things. What I'm here to do at this moment is to yada, yada, yada. I am here to win the blue ribbon for the most difficult person in the office today. And that's not it. I'm here to love, I'm here to learn, I'm here to serve, I'm here to teach, I'm here to do many things. And if I can focus on those and remember why I'm here rather than letting other people dictate to me why I'm here, I will not only be more successful in my day-to-day communication, I will be happier with it. Because I'll know that regardless of what's going on around me, I'm taking care of business. I can do what I'm here to do on the planet, whether I'm teaching a course, talking to my nephew, dealing with a difficult person, at the grocery store, waiting in line at the airport. When I first realized how I can do whatever it is that I'm here to do, I can do that all the time. I don't need somebody's help. I don't need somebody's permission. I don't need anything other than the knowledge of why I'm here. My whole life changed. And I know that many of you have already experienced that, and your whole life changed as well. So this week, what I'd like you to do is focus, even especially in our difficult conversations that we're going to have, on your why I'm here statements. And remember that in that moment, in the sliver in time that you have the wherewithal to remember why you're here, it tends to be during difficult situations where it's important to remember why you're here, because it's an assignment, especially when you're dealing with difficult people. That's an assignment for you, and your job is to remember why you're here. Because remember, if you forget why you're there and you think, I'm here to be nasty, and then you are nasty to that person, that situation will happen again. And you can choose to fulfill the role that you are here to play. You can choose to do what you're here to do because you're the one who decides what you're here to do. And if you don't decide what you're here to do, someone else, unfortunately, will decide it for you. So everybody, I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something new. You have assignments for this week, remember. You are going to be prepared with paper. You're going to check out other people's lion eyes. You're going to be practicing not using hostile questions or generalizations. You have some danger phrases you'll be eliminating from your verbal repertoire at work and replacing them with some power phrases. You will be practicing your lead-in lines and your closing lines and focusing on your principle of the week. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I know I did, and I look forward to seeing you next week.